Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
It's December and I want it to snow here on my computer screen in a window like this. And I already have, and it's only the 12th. But I'm going to work every day until the 24th with tiny tweaks and fixes. There's a lot to be done. Already, if I reload here, you can see there's something with the responsiveness that's not quite there yet. We only get part of the screen. And there's also, I would like the snowflakes to gently move from side to side and maybe also add wind and lots of stuff. But before I do anything, I need to clean up my code. So that is what I'm going to do today. So let's expand here so we can see all the code and let's fix it. The first thing is these two variables, maxx and maxy. I would really like them to be part of a configuration object where I can put all the configurations like the minimum and maximum speed and wind speed and whatever I might have later. So I'm going to create a config object and I'm going to make it a const. Because the cool thing about const objects is that I can't change the object itself, but I can change the properties inside. So I'm going to copy this one, maxx. That's now a property, so I don't write equal, but colon, and end it with a comma. And I'm going to copy the other one, maxy. Paste that in, and also use a colon. And I don't need a comma after the last one. And then I just need every single place where I use maxx. I need to use config.maxx. And the easy way to find and replace them is find one, click inside it, go to edit, rename, Ctrl R, and just write config.maxx. And now every single place is changed. Also the variable name itself up here, but we're going to delete that in a moment. And we're going to do the same with maxy here. Just Ctrl R, config.maxy. And we can just delete these. Let's just remove them and save. And let's just try it out to make sure. Yes, it's still working. Good. I'm going to close this because we're going to break it again and again. So the next thing is do the same with the min and max speed. I'm going to take min and rename that to config.min speed. And note how it changes everywhere where I use it. And max speed I'm going to rename to config.max speed. And then I'm just going to copy the properties here, insert a comma, and min speed would be 10, comma, and max speed without the config, of course, would be 100. And I can remove the variables down here. Let's just try it once again, just to be sure. And it still works perfectly. See, now we are really going to break stuff. Because all of these arrays, flakes is kind of an array. We have speed and x plus and y plus and the flakes, and all of them are snowflakes. A snowflake has a property of a y plus, a property of a x plus, a property speed, and a property kind of that is the element. Actually, I do think this flakes shouldn't be called flakes. That's the HTML elements. So I'm going to rename it to elements. So now I'm pretty sure that's the elements. I could create, say, a standard const snowflake. A standard object for all the snowflakes. They will have a y plus of some value. I'm just putting in 0. An x plus of some value. A speed of some value. And then an element and that would be a link to one of the elements in this array. I'm just writing null here because there isn't any real element yet. So every snowflake has these properties. So if I could make an object for every snowflake based on this prototype and use the properties, and I actually can, and I'm going to, because here when I go through all the elements, I'm just going to remove this code. I could say I could create a snowflake object, and that would be like let snowflake. I could do it like this, that would just create an empty object. But I could also say Object.create like this. That would also create an empty object, but I could say Object.create on the basis of this snowflake, uppercase snowflake, the big snowflake, the one true snowflake, the prototype snowflake. So I would create this small, let's call it flake, just to avoid confusion. So I create a flake object based on the snowflake object. And then I could ask my reset code to say, okay, I'm going to reset, please reset my flake. And inside the reset, rather than getting I would get a flake. And rather than setting xpos I would set my flake would have an xpos. And the same down here. It would also have a ypos. And it would have a speed. And it would have elements. Yes, that would be the flake. Would have an element that would have a style that would be transformed. Okay, elements, not element, just element. So I also have to put in the element somehow, but that's easy. That's right here. So I'm just going to say flake.element would be equal to elements I. And then I've created a snowflake. But the problem is I just created and then I throw it away. So I actually need an array for this snowflake. So I do need one array. I don't need all of those. I definitely don't need these three. That one I'm going to keep for just a while. The const, I'm going to put it here. Let snowflakes be an empty array. And then when I create a snowflake object, I'm going to push it into the array. Like that. So this would kind of work. I reset my flake. I set the xpos, the ypos, the speed, and I set the style of the element. I just have to do the same inside the move. Here it's not the elements I'm going through. I shouldn't go through the elements. I should go to the flakes. It was called snowflakes. And then I would say let flake let flake be my snowflakes I. And here I would set on my flake, my element would be set to my flake ypos. And the same here. My flake element style would be set to my flake xpos without the I. And I would set the flake dot ypos without the I to be the flake dot speed without the I. And if the flake's ypos should somehow be greater than my config, I would have to reset my flake. And this should now work. So now I have an array of snowflakes all based on this prototype. Let's try it out. Whoa, it just works. That was amazing. Okay, I'll have to hurry up and write some comments and then commit. Because I create the snowflake and I connect it to the element, the HTML element. And then of course I reset all the properties before I store it in my array. And by the way, note that this one, elements, is not used anymore anywhere but here. So I'm going to move it inside this function again. And these all here, I'm just going to remove them. And this one go, what does it do? Go over all div elements in the HTML. Okay. And reset, I reset the XPOS, I reset the speed and the style. Here remember the last state. And I find the flake, and yes, this should be pretty okay. I'm going to commit using objects. And using objects give us really cool features that I'm going to look in tomorrow. See you then.
Let it snow.